Good morning and welcome to our webinar this morning on ARC's country profiles. My name is David Humphrey. I'm an analyst with ARC based in Munich, and we're joined this morning by my two colleagues, Stefan Miksch, who is in Dresden, and Florian Güldner, who is also based here in Munich. ARC's country market analysis reports, or country profiles, are short reports of about 30-35 pages in length that satisfy a need that has arisen in recent years from our client base. For more than 15 years, we've supplied country level market data based on our ARC studies, and now we've been asked by a number of sources to extend this offering to include qualitative in addition to quantitative information on the automation markets and industries in selected countries. A lot of our clients are asking questions like this when they're considering expanding into a new country, building production facilities, opening new sales offices, or extending an existing network of sales offices. They ask, what do I need to consider in moving into a new country? What are the key industries? What is the potential? What are my competitors doing? Who is present in the market already? How long have they been there? What is the structure of the market? How is the market structured in the way that automation products, systems, and solutions are engineered, distributed, and otherwise sold? We also consider detailed descriptions of industries, including industry clusters and the main key industries and where they're centered geographically. I would like to pass on the baton now to my colleague Florian Güldner, who is going to go into further detail about exactly what's in these reports.
Yes, thank you, David, and also good morning to all participants in Europe, and good afternoon from the participants we have from Asia. Now, I want to quickly show you what is included in the report. Quickly go through that. That's basically the standardized table of content. As David described, we have around 30-35 pages. So we obviously start with a brief introduction, report in a nutshell, an overview, and then we slowly descend from the high GDP level down to the machine builders, down to the plant floor, and then further down into the automation systems within the machinery. The economy, here's what we really focus on, are the vertical markets, so the industries which drive the country, because we see that over and over again, it's really the vertical markets in an industry that shape the country economy as a whole. Then we go down to machine builders and EPCs, and there are some countries with huge numbers of OEMs and machine builders, and some with just a handful, so we have to look at both sides. And most important, we list the important players here. So we go down, we're going to give you a landscape, and we list the who is who of the local industry. Next, again, the industry structure, also here with industry names. It's very important, especially when you move away from your, let's say, center of, or you move away from your comfort zone where you really know everyone. So you move to smaller countries. You need the names, you need really specific information. That's what we provide here. And then we move down to automation markets, and we have one chapter about the competitive environment, where we show how long was is a country already, or a company in the country, how many companies are there, is it fragmented, etc. We describe that here. And then, because investment decisions are long run, we also focus on the long run. We provide a SWOT for growth, and we, in the back of our heads, we have a PESTLE, that's political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. So these are the fundamental factors driving a country over years and decades. Last, we have a product scope, because these profiles are product specific. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Quickly want to touch about the methodology now, and then I again pass on to David for France, and we'll give you some real life example where we also show you a little bit how we process all the information and the like. So how then do we get to our data? The core are again the ARC market studies. They are established, they have very high quality. really established studies partly cover 90% of the market, so it's really high quality, and this is the foundation of what we do. On top of that, we have 15 years of experience in market modeling and country research. So for 15 years, we are collecting data and information and data. It piled up over the years, and now we're finally making something out of it. Obviously, we also have primary research because automation markets in countries are very specific. And to put a long story short, automation markets in countries, you cannot Google that. So you need to go down, you need to have interviews, and you need to have the primary research. Local economy, that's basically doing the homework. Industrial statistical offices, industrial associations, using what's out there, WTO, OECD, all those sources are combined. That's what we use. And then this is very special with these reports. We go down to local players. So we scan via Thomson Reuters. These scans are typically very vast, but they're not really accurate. So it often ends up that you have one company classified as a machine builder who is not a machine builder. So we scan that using NAICE codes, we scan that using algorithms and everything. But in the end, you have a manual inspection by the analysts looking at it and saying, yes, that's relevant, not to provide you the list of potential clients or competitors or companies to partner with. And again, for the automation companies, we have primary research and we do have our studies. That's for the local players here as well. Moving to one of the most beautiful countries in the world, France. David.
Thanks, Florian. On the right-hand side, you can see in the graphic a number of the key indicators that we have determined, some of the trend curves that we've come up with on the automation markets in France in particular. In general, France is one of the world's strongest, largest economies. It's number 6 according to GDP size. France hasn't quite recovered to the pre-financial crisis level of 2008, 2009, but it's on its way. Growth is slow but steady. The economy is characterized by a number of factors that both inhibit and encourage growth. France is known for its high youth unemployment, like several peer countries in Europe. And this is due in part to the lack of adequate vocational skills training. France has very strict labor laws. It's very difficult to hire and fire people, or companies are reluctant to hire because of the difficulty of firing. France is maybe going through a change, even a metamorphosis under the current president. We'll see how resistant French workers, unions, and companies are to any sort of change in the labor market in the next year or two. France benefits from one of the few growing populations in Europe. That means that markets for basic things from food and beverage to pharmaceuticals are on a growth path. And the one major factor in the French economy is the relatively high level of government spending. A lot of economic decisions, a lot of pretty much everything in the economy is centralized in Paris around the government. I'll get to that point later on. The strongest industries in France are pretty well known. It's France is one of the largest, I think it's the second largest producers of automobiles in Europe. The aerospace and defense sector is strong on both sides. Aerospace, obviously, with Airbus, and France, together with Germany, the US, and Russia, is one of the top exporters of armament and weapons in the world. The chemicals and pharmaceuticals sector, located in the Northeast, together with Belgium, is a very strong sector. And we all know the strength and the export strength, in particular, of the food and beverage sector in France, the specialties like wine, cheese, and other sort of nice things that we like to eat from France. I mentioned before the tight relationship between the government and industry. This has to do in a large degree with the education system. There are elite schools that, if you're lucky for your kid to go to one of these schools, there's a good chance your kid will get a good job in the government or be a captain of industry. It's a very tight-knit circle. Everybody knows each other, and this leads to the centralization of many decisions in the government that affect industry directly. The machine building sector in France is a little bit mixed. France is a net importer of machinery. Most of machinery comes from its neighboring countries, from Germany and Italy. France does produce machinery, especially for the process industries, but not enough to cover its own needs, and therefore it's a net importer. Otherwise, the companies, the EPCs that actually execute projects and build whole facilities are all located in a strong group of clusters around the country. I'm going to pass the baton back to Florian to give some information on the next country in our list, which is South Korea.
Yes, thanks, David. So big jump from France to South Korea. And let me just explain you on the left side what you're seeing here, because that's one of our core, a couple of our core charts here. This is what we call a clock or a landscape. And you'll see the different machine builders here, from oil and gas field machinery, moving over the process industries, then to hybrid like packaging, converting industry targets, and then on all the way you have them on the more discrete machine types. And then in this case, you see the total numbers of machine builders in South Korea, and very similar to here on the EPC landscape, moving from raw materials over process and hybrid to discrete again. This is very unique. So each of the countries that we have analyzed so far has a very, very distinct landscape. Some may look similar. You can compare maybe Russia and South Africa because of their mining strength, but then again, Russia has the oil and gas. South Korea also is very, very individual in structure. And in machine building, as well as EPCs, you see a very, very high focus on electronics and semiconductors. They have probably one of the strongest ecosystems. They do import a couple of the machineries from Japan. There are also strong ties to Taiwanese clusters, but there is a very strong integration in South Korea between semiconductors, then the electronics, often the same company. So Samsung has basically various segments and business units, and they do semiconductors as well as the electronics, and then they have the link to the local machine builders. On the EPC side, that's also very, very unique for South Korea. You do have a large number for chemical as well as oil and gas, and obviously a very high concentration here of companies ranging from electric power, water, wastewater, and buildings. So basically infrastructure. This is something we observe in a number of countries, but what's different here in South Korea is that they are very, very strong in building plants, building facilities, and roads and everything around the world. So they do have a very, very high export share. Korean EPCs build power plants, they build chemical facilities everywhere from Middle East to Eastern Europe to Southeast Asia. So again, doing business in South Korea is also participating in growth across the world. What you see here is, moving on to the next chart, basically, is you have the revenues, in this case, machinery automation on different machine types. Those are machine types, not vertical industries, but semiconductor machinery being the largest segment, followed by metal cutting, etc. And what you also see here is South Korea is one of the few countries that actually manufacture and design and build robots, where you have the highest growth rate, participating in the global boom of robotics. Again, focused on automotive as well as semiconductors. So not semiconductors, electronics. So this is really, really pushing also like the robotics market here. And then you have a couple of the names here of the OEMs as well as the EPCs. Right. So that's South Korea in a nutshell. Very quick, only touching on the machineries and EPCs. I want to talk a little bit about vertical markets, moving to the next country, and again switching the continent from South Korea to South Africa. And everyone basically knows South Africa is mining. It's the whole country is scattered with mines, and something we do for all of the countries are those maps of clusters. It shows you where the industries are, where they are really, really strong. If you want to expand the business, it shows you where you have to set up offices. And mining is very, very clear. The center is Johannesburg. Joburg was established as a mining town to start with, and is now a center of expertise, also exporting it to all over sub-Saharan Africa. So really, it's the center of mining for sub-Saharan Africa, and very, very easy to well, spot geographically also. Other manufacturing is more scattered out, so you have everything from Cape Town here to the Eastern Cape from discrete manufacturing. And talking to people in South Africa, they say you could serve both of these regions with one sales office, so there's quite good connection between Port Elizabeth and Cape Town. All of the industries I mentioned so far they have one challenge, and that's the shortage of engineers. I didn't wrote that down, but South Africa has probably one of the worst educational systems in the more developed areas. Nevertheless, the wages for skilled people are quite high. So it's not, you have few skilled people, a lot of unskilled people, which is really a challenge for the complete country, not just for the manufacturing sector. So wages are quite high, for skilled people especially high. No one goes to South Africa to manufacture cheaply and on low costs. So the skilled people are rare. Many of the international companies use expats, which makes it even more expensive. And you have the drawback that many of the experienced engineers then often leave the country, because South Africa is still a dangerous place to be. It has a high crime rate. Security is really an issue. There are high security spendings also for company, protecting the assets, really physically protecting the assets. Yeah, so this is a big threat to the overall economy. We are quite optimistic about the midterm development in South Africa, especially now when the consolidation of the mining sector is basically over and we see a ramp up in prices. That will also impact the overall South African economy very, very positively. And with this, I move on to the next country, and that will be presented by my colleague Stefan Miksch.
Thank you, Florian. So now another big jump from Africa to South America, where we also want to give you a brief overview about a very interesting country, Chile. Chile is especially interesting because in more or less many South American countries, the economical development is very unstable, and compared to that, Chile has a very stable development over the past years, despite the fact that it's also a country that is very dependent on more or less one industry, which is mining. And within this industry, the main material that is mined is copper. So the copper exports, for instance, make up 50% of the export goods in Chile. And copper production in general also accounts for 1/4 of the GDP. So it's a very large industry sector and very strong. And as you can see in the right chart here for raw materials, the development here for this raw material of copper declined significantly during 2016, which is not that production declined, but actually copper prices declined significantly during 2016. But over the past years, global copper prices have increased again. So this also benefits, of course, the Chilean economy during the past 2 years. What's also interesting about Chile is that while copper is one of the most important mined goods, they also have a stronger mining industry for gold and silver. And now in times of electric vehicles and battery manufacturing, a new economy is establishing very well in Chile, because Chile is the largest or holds the largest known economically extractable resource of lithium in the world by far. And as of now, Chile is the second largest producer of lithium in the world, right after Australia. But this is very likely to change, that Chile will be the largest producer of lithium in the world, and also will export, of course, a lot because of the high demand for lithium in all this battery manufacturing. So it's an interesting process that we will see in the future what's happening here. Another important industry for the Chilean economy is pulp and paper, which would be part of the process industries, because 21% of the Chile's territory is covered by forests. So a lot of paper and pulp products coming just from natural resources, and there are also a lot of people actually employed in this industry. Over 120,000 people are currently working in the forestry industry in Chile. So it's a very large industry, not using high amounts of automation, but with growing demand for wood products in the world. It's very likely that to keep up with the increasing demands, the efforts to automate more in this industry will also have an impact on automation sales in this industry. Another great and well-developing industry has been in the hybrid industry, where we count towards the food and beverage industry, because it has one part the process and one part the discrete side with actually producing the food and then packaging it. So it's in our definition a hybrid industry. And one of the products that has been experiencing very strong growth over the past years has been wine and wine exports. But Chile is also a strong exporter of grapes and wheat and crops and all these products that go into, for instance, animal feeding, but also processed foods have also increased over the past years. And this export business is improving very well. It has seen a stable development over the past years, but the demand is increasing. So in the future years, we expect here in the hybrid industries a much better and higher percentage or growth. Machinery in Chile is more or less connected to the mining industry, but most of the machinery here is imported. There's only a very small sector of local machine builders that focus on excavation machinery or stone crushing machinery, but it's really low, really small business. So a lot of this machinery is imported from other countries, mainly now today from China. Historically, it has been imported from Europe, but European machinery has become too expensive, and China has here established to be the #1 importing country here for mining machinery. But in general, the local business for machinery has been developing very well, of course, coming from a very low level. This also, in the end, of course, generates some opportunities for service business, because service companies in Chile are not very well established. A lot of the service is done by foreign countries who have set up service offices in Chile. So, but with the growing demand for mining machinery, and as I also mentioned, with food and beverage processing machinery, maybe there's some potential for foreign companies investing there and setting up sales offices and service offices, in fact. So, yeah, this is a brief overview of the Chilean industry and how it developed in the past. So, if you want to know more, of course, you know where to find it. Thank you.
Thanks, Stefan. Just a quick slide. So that's how the reports look like. That's standard ARC look and feel. And let me just conclude this with a quick list of countries that we are currently working on. It's quite new, so we are working on, I think, most of them in parallel right now. This is a global effort involving ARC staff from, well, Japan all the way to US. We have locals in many of these countries. The ones that you see in bold here, marked in bold, are already available. The rest are available within a brief period of time. And now, for us, as being an automation and research company, we are quite specific in the way we present data. And so the idea behind this whole country reports, country market analysis reports, are basically the first thing to do is choosing a country. The list is online already. That would be the list to link to ArcWeb. And if that's not available, please contact us, because we do plan to extend that list further and further. And the next thing is choosing a product. In the cases we have presented here is, for example, for France, this is the data on the local PLC market. It's the PLC market for France in millions of US. So all this is quite specific to automation. It's very specific to individual products also. So next thing is you choose a country, you choose a product. Product baskets will be available, obviously. So our country market analysis reports are specific in two ways. They are specific in terms of product and in terms of country.
Yeah, thanks very much, Florian and Stefan, for your presentations on several specific countries as an example. We're going to end the official part of the webinar right now. Thanks very much for your attention. I wish you all a great day. Goodbye.